Thank you everyone who's joined us for the webinar and all those who are joining as I speak. We will get started in about a little less than 1 minute.
A little less.
So we'll get started in just a few seconds. Amber and Joy, Nicole, can you see the screen and the PowerPoint?
I can see it.
You can see it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to session 2 of the Identifying and Dismantling White Supremacy webinar series. Session 2 is how to talk to white colleagues about racism and white supremacy. This series is part of a larger network organization that we call the Racial Equity and Hunger National Learning Network. It was put together just at the beginning of 2020 with the idea of recognizing the fact that we must discuss race and apply a racial equity lens to the work that we're doing in terms of ending hunger. And we want to focus on doing the things where we can learn together, where we can empower each other, and where we can make sure that we identify the issues in the areas, the policies, practice, procedures that we can all take in order to dismantle the system of racism, and especially in terms of how it impacts hunger and food insecurity. Racial Equity Network you can find on our website, racialequityhunger.org, and there you can find a video to our last webinar that we did just a couple of weeks ago, and you can also find information, other resources, including a podcast that we did recently about the intersection between racial equity, hunger, and COVID-19. My name is Donald Wood, and I'm the Executive Director of an organization called Just Communities of Arkansas. I'm also one of the co-chairs of the Racial Equity and Hunger Learning National Network. I'm joined by my colleague and partner, Amber Booth McCoy, who is the founder and CEO of the Diversity Booth and also a TEDx speaker. And we were your facilitators at the last session, but this time we are extremely honored and excited to be joined by Dr. Joy Nicole Martinez, who, as you can see, has quite a list of accomplishments, and not just accomplishments, but things that she's actually doing right now in terms of being a leader in the diversity, equity, and inclusion field, in addition to the health and human services field around wellness and other types of issues related to food insecurity and hunger. So welcome, Amber and Dr. Joy Nicole.
Yes.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you.
So real quickly, what I wanted to do is, for those that weren't able to join us last time, but also for those that did join us, to make sure that we kind of understand the context of what we're going to be doing today in relationship to last time, because part 1 and part 2 were meant to be a a joint program together. And in the first session, these are the three things that we covered in the workshop that we did. And it was really about the idea of understanding racism and understanding how it impacts us, understanding our relationship and role to it, understanding what an anti-racist culture looks like. So it really was about that idea of being in the mindset of what is racism, what is white supremacy, and what is our relationship, or what is my relationship to it. And the way we do that at the organization that Amber and I work for is that we focus on three particular areas of change, and that's the interpersonal change, the interpersonal change, and the institutional change. And those are part of the cycle of what's called the cycle of liberation, and liberation being the ultimate goal. We may say equity, we may say justice, but liberation is ultimately the idea that we are free from oppression based on who we are, the color of our skin, who we love, where we live, how we speak, all kinds of different areas or cultures, dimensions of cultures or identities, that we're liberated from any sort of oppression based on those. So that's what we mean by the cycle of liberation. And it's important to understand that one of the ways that we get to a place where we can be allies and advocates, ambassadors, co-conspirators in this fight for liberation is that we really want to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And we really want to get to places where we can understand where we are, where our reality is as individuals and as organizations in relationship to racial equity and hunger, and where we want to be, and wrestle with that tension, wrestle with that discomfort that lies between those two things. And that's where we think the energy for change is really wrestling with that, reckoning with that, on a continuous basis. And you build that ability like a muscle or like stamina. You build that ability to address or deal with, lean into, whatever phrase you want to use, but you learned how to stay in this fight for equity, justice, liberation. And we talked about the 6 R's, the things that we need to understand on this path from the interpersonal change to the interpersonal relationships that were going to be necessary to have these conversations, whether with white colleagues or other colleagues, people of color. And we want to receive, we want to do our homework, we want to get the information that we need in order to be educated, to understand the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. We want to make sure we reflect on that information and understand what that means in relationship to us. And then we've got to realize how this system works, how it operates. And we then reckon with our role in that, whether we sustain it, whether we perpetuate it, or whether we're dismantling it. And then we reach out and raise elephants. So in between today and our last session, my co-chair Marlisa Gamblin sent out some information. It's kind of like a homework assignment. You have the 3 R's in our traditional grade school, but we have our 6 R's as far as putting equity and inclusion work into practice. And we came up with these questions that were based on the experience from the first session, and we put those out there and we challenged everybody. We asked everybody if they could work with or talk to at least another colleague or some of their colleagues based on these questions. And we asked folks to respond, and we got some responses from folks. And one particular response we got was from Michelle Zurakowski, who's with Beyond Hunger, the executive director there. And I wanted to share what Michelle had to say. And I believe Michelle is on the call. And Michelle, I wanted to give you a minute, if you would like, to share a little bit more about your comment here that you shared with us. And if so, if you could, in the chat section, if you just raise your hand, and I can attempt to give you the ability to speak up. So 1 second.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted.
Ah, there you go. So go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, that's so kind of you to call on me. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, I mean, we had I invited a few of, I invited all of our staff, and several of them participated in the session a couple weeks ago. And one of them was said, let's talk about this afterwards. So even before we got the homework, she was wanting to engage in a more personal level on this work. So we had a really, I think, deep and meaningful conversation afterwards. And what came out of that was a desire to talk even more explicitly about racism and white supremacy in language, I think, that we have not been used to using. And so we are extending an invitation we have a volunteer leadership group, and we also have a client advisory council, and we are inviting those members to participate in this work as well. So it's still early days on that, but it was meaningful enough to us all to want to take that next step.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. And I appreciate that you responding. I know I called on you unexpectedly, so I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to this session.
Thank you. So is there someone else who would like to share your experience? If you'd like to, through audio, just let me know. And like I said, you can raise your hand and I can make sure that you are unmuted and you can share with the group. Or if you'd like to, you're also welcome in the question section. If you'd like to submit a question to me in the form of a statement and I can read it out loud, that would be fine too. So who else? Who else would like to share?
I didn't do my homework often in school, so when I did, I really like to raise my hand real fast.
I never want to be like that teacher who made students respond. So, well, would anyone like to respond to perhaps the fact that maybe you had a conversation related to one of these questions recently, although it maybe wasn't intentionally because of this homework assignment, but give an example of your experience or how that experience made you feel or what you learned from that experience? Yeah.
It's like there are a few
Yep.
hands raised. Okay.
All right, let's see. Amber, you're seeing hands being raised?
There are hands raised.
Mhm.
Yes. I'm doing this correctly. Amber, Joy, Nicole, if you have the ability to unclick, because I'm not seeing any hands raised on my end. Sorry about that, everyone. Appreciate your patience and grace with our experience with GoToWebinar.
Would you like
a question where someone asks, how does one raise their hand? There are some questions and answers. We have another participant says, we had an internal conversation as well. It was a great opportunity to realize that we were not alone in some of our experiences, so we were independently feeling isolated.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Donald, would you like them unmuted in order of their hand being raised?
That would be great. Sure. Yes. Thank you. We'll take a couple folks.
Hello?
Yes. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. I didn't know if you could see me. I was just actually typing it up in the chat. But my name is Gabriela Pena, and I'm the pantry coordinator up here at Aware Food Bank in Woodburn, Oregon. And I actually first noticed my difference when I was, I believe, about 9 years old was the first time I attended a powwow. My dad is Native American and my mom is Caucasian. And yes, it was very different for me to see our culture. I had always seen our families being different, but I grew up in California where there was a whole bunch of different racial ethnicities around me. But to see our culture being observed and celebrated was really unique for me. And I always took that with me. And now to this day, in a lot of what I do, I feel as though there's a sense of responsibility to my ancestors as I move forward. So it's really been, that was probably my first time. And then I did realize when I was older and moved to North Dakota, where it was a lot of Anglo-American places up there with my ex-husband in the military, I realized that what appeared to be the negative side of being a different race other than white. And it didn't even matter if I was pregnant. A lot of the people had so much just kind of blatant disrespect, would put us in the back of a corner in a restaurant, would be okay with bumping into me with their shopping carts and never apologizing. That was the first time I ever experienced anything negative, and it was as an adult, so it was really eye-opening and stuck with me. So as I'm here in this food banking world, I take a lot of my life experiences and use it to really promote equity in the place that we're at now.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your vulnerability and transparency.
Oh, she took her. There we go.
Who's next? Hello?
I heard someone.
Takia Brown.
Hi. Hello.
No.
Hello?
Hi. I just wanted to kind of talk about question one, which was, when you were first aware of yourself as a member of a particular racial group. And I don't know if it's because of I know things, cultures are a little different. The South is a culture unto itself. I don't recall not being aware that I was not Black. Like, I cannot recall a time of ever not either in the home or outside of my home, especially in school. But I never had, I guess, I don't want to say, I don't know if privilege would be the right term for it, but I never had, which is something that we kind of talk about. I don't know how often Black children are gifted with that innocence of not being aware that they are not a member of a particular racial group. And I think it is, I know from my own personal experience, it is for protection. I think that's a long-standing, I feel like it's a long-standing theme growing up African American, is that you have to be aware of it, because you have to be aware. It's a way for your parents to kind of protect you as well as prepare you for what the world at large will look like and be like for you. So that's just my I don't recall ever not being able to not be made aware that I was a member of a particular racial group.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ski. Who else?
Another, Erica Hernandez Burke. She's unmuted and her hand is raised.
Eric, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, awesome. Thank you so much. I'm sorry if my voice gets shaky. I get nervous talking in front of people.
It's okay.
So yeah, my name is Erica Hernandez Burke. I'm Irish Puerto Rican American. and I am a white Latina woman. I think one of the first real times that I was aware of my racial identity was at school. I was brought to, so I went to a very diverse school, majority Black African American, and I was brought to a group of girls who were, I believe, all African American, and one of them said, "Oh, what is she doing here?" And then the girl who was with me said, "Oh, don't worry, she's Puerto Rican." And I kind of, I mean, looking back on it, it's very funny now. But I think I was very confused, and I still remain very confused about communities and feeling a part of a community, and just, how I represent myself as a white woman, as a Puerto Rican woman. And yeah, and I want to thank you guys for everything you're doing. I feel like I'm learning a lot here. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Yes, thank
Courage.
you.
There are 2 additional hands, Donald.
Let's do 2. Yeah, 2 more. That'd be great. Thank you all.
Janine Rios.
Hello, thank you. So at first I didn't want to say anything because I felt like I wanted to give other people a chance to talk. And then I was like, wait, no one's raising their hand? Okay. I think it's so funny because I wasn't aware as a child that I was Latina, that I was Mexican. I knew I was Mexican American, but I wasn't treated differently as far as I could tell. Like looking back, I see it now. But we were in a segregated area in Montebello, California. And so it was all made up of Latinos, our elementary, middle school, high school, and Asian. So it was like 60-40, and you could count the white and Black people on one hand. And so I felt like I was very much around people who look like me and we all treated each other the same. But looking back, we were definitely treated differently by teachers. The Asian students were very much prepped to be college ready, and our college advisor at the school would tell all the Latino boys to join the military and the girls to go to junior college, even though we were college ready, which I remember thinking that's weird. But when you're a kid, you don't know what that is. You don't know the name or what to call it. So it's, my mom made sure to bus us to a better school district. So looking back, I feel like she really opened the door to us just being at a different, striving for higher education, and just like we just knew that we were going to college, and she opened the door for us to value education, because the school down our block in East LA, those kids were so much farther behind where we were, because we did get kicked out of school for a week when they found out we were being bused, but our parents quickly moved us to that area, which was very impactful. So determinants of health are real, and I got to see that firsthand. Like I knew that education was huge and it was important. And now I study that, and it makes such a huge difference. So I'm just so grateful for that experience.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
And then finally, Janet Osborne.
Hi. I first became aware of myself as a member of a particular racial group probably when I was about 6 or 8. I am 69 years old now.
Wow.
And at the time, I went to an elementary school which had a few Black children in it. They happened in my grade to all be girls, but that just was happenstance. And around the time I was 6 or 8, our neighborhood became more integrated. And I remember being slightly afraid of these new girls down the block I was never afraid of the black girls in my school. I suppose because I knew them, I knew their older siblings, my siblings knew their siblings. But these new kids, it was kind of different. And I think that's when I first became aware. At the same time, my parents were talking about urban renewal and what redlining was, and that our neighborhood had been redlined, or no, I don't remember. But anyway, it was kind of like there was this conversation going on at home about all of that. I don't remember being treated differently because of my racial group until I was probably in college. My racial identity, I'm not proud of it at all. I've never been proud of my racial identity. I suppose it's part of the incorrect idea that white is normal, and that's what I grew up feeling. I realize that now, but I didn't at the time. So one of the most challenging parts about being a member of my racial group is unlearning white supremacy and racism. That's it.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, and thank you all who shared, but for everyone who thinking about and processing your responses to those answers, and especially to those that were consciously listening to those that were able and were sharing with us. Today's purpose really is all about listening. You know, the title of the program today is, you know, how to talk about racism and white supremacy, particularly with our white colleagues. But, you know, I wanted to kind of think about this in terms of communications. You know, and in communications, you know, we have our verbal, we have our nonverbal, we have written, and we have listening. A lot of people kind of forget about the listening part and how critically important that is to the talking part. And so today we're really going to focus on conscious listening. And today's purpose really is kind of twofold in that its purpose is really for two different audiences. You know, for our white audience, the purpose here is for white people like myself to really start to realize how this system of racism that has created a culture of white supremacy that we all live in, how it works and what it looks like, but most importantly, realizing and reckoning with your responsibility to that system. What's your role in it? Your responsibility, and like I said earlier, you're either sustaining it, you're perpetuating it, or you're dismantling it. So we're going to use today as an opportunity for us to consciously listen. Like I believe that a lot of us have never listened probably before, and just in my experience, and that's for my white audience. For the audience, people of color, especially Black, Indigenous communities, Latinx communities, this is hopefully going to help validate your lived experience, also give you a look into the conversations that white people are having, should be having in terms of racism and white supremacy. And we hope there are things that you will take away and learn from this experience. But please know that if this is a workshop, this is a workshop that white people need to do the work, especially. So before we get started with that activity we're going to move into, I want to do a participant poll. So please complete the following statement. The main reason I don't talk about white supremacy with my white colleagues, or prefer not to talk about it, is that I don't see a space for myself to say something that matters, or I'm not sure what to say, or fear saying the wrong thing. I fear being mistreated by or alienated from white colleagues. I don't feel white supremacy affects me or my office. Or finally, I fear talking about it might make things worse. Let's take a few seconds, about 30 seconds, to respond to this quick poll, please.
It's like, right now, I'm not sure what to say for fear of saying the wrong thing seems to be a common thing.
Okay, a couple more seconds. We're about at 70% participants have voted. I will close the poll. Share the results with everyone. Yeah, Amber or Dr. Joy Nicole, did you have thoughts on the responses?
Well, it says I'm not sure what to say, or fear of saying the wrong thing. I think that one, acknowledging that we're not going to say the right thing. Even us on the screen don't know everything about every culture. And so I think that's the importance of culture humility. I think the other part of that is the same way we take up tasks to learn other material that is necessary for us to take up information and read about, learn about, and then ask the experience of, like we're doing today, people that have that experience and can share that with you. Dr. Joy Nicole?
I would say fear of saying the wrong thing is what keeps us bound and what keeps racism growing. The point of this event, webinars like it, is to not just help you get past the fear, but recognize fear shouldn't be where you begin and end. So it's fine to be afraid of saying the wrong thing. It's worse to not speak because you're afraid.
That's it.
So be afraid, but still ask. Be afraid, but still engage. Be afraid, but still participate. Be afraid, but still confront. I think the fear part is natural. That's just humanity, right? But what we would like is that people can acknowledge, yeah, this is making me uncomfortable and nervous, but it's something we have to address.
Right. And that your silence is often louder than you're actually saying something.
Absolutely. Thank you. I like that. Be afraid, but still. I feel like that should be kind of the mantra of the lessons that are going to be taken away and applied after this workshop. So what we're going to do now for the next 45 to 50 minutes and perhaps longer, depending on kind of the feel from the group, is that I'm going to read a series of statements that are statements that Dr. Joy Nicole and Amber and I are very familiar with, them definitely much more than I have, at least having experience with similar statements. These are statements that we, in the work that we've done in DEI, hear quite a bit from folks asking about, how do I respond to this, or how do I start a conversation like this? We've worded these statements literally based on things we've heard exactly. I want to kind of give you an inside look. Last night, as part of our planning for this, the three of us were talking about an activity due here, and Dr. Joy Nicole and Amber started to share through their vulnerability plus courage, started to share with me kind of their reaction to these statements that white people have with each other, that sometimes white people have with their colleagues of color. And in the many years that I've been doing this, it was by far the most enlightening, powerful, and uncomfortable 2 hours I've had in my career. And I felt that this is something that we need to share with this group, because this is probably unlike any experience anybody would have. This is just Dr. Joy Nicole's and just Amber's lived experiences, but I'm willing to bet that a lot of us have had similar experiences and can relate. So what we want to do is kind of see that inside look at how this system operates. If you peel back these statements that we make, most of them, if not all of them, in all good intent from a lot of us that do this work, but we peel that back and we see behind what that means as far as the impact on people of color. So we're going to go through these statements, and I strongly encourage everyone to truly lean in to the next 45 minutes or so as Dr. Joy Nicole and Amber share with us. So Dr. Joy Nicole, Amber, are we ready?
We are.
We're ready.
All right. Here comes our, what we're calling the don'ts list.
Or the stops. The don'ts are the stops.
I like that, or the stops. I can't be racist. I was raised not to see color. Plus, I have 2 biracial children.
One, this is what I call the Black adjacent, where we use Black people around us to, I guess, qualify that we are not racist. One, I need you to see color. I need you to see my color, because I navigate, engage, and interact in the world. And much of that has to do with being a Black woman. And much of that experience is because of that identity. So to say, one, that you don't see it takes that away from me. You've erased my existence in that conversation. And then 2, having biracial children or a Black husband or, Black people in your family does not mean, 1, that you're not still perpetuating racist statements or upholding, if you will, being part of the solution and dismantling white supremacy. And it also doesn't mean that they're not feeling the impact of things said in the family and they simply don't express those things to you.
I'm just gonna really say uncomfortable things today, just qualifying exactly who I am. So that last statement that you have biracial or interracial or mixed children, most slave owners had biracial children. Your children are not you. They are part of you. I'm a mother of 5 amazing children, but they are individuals, and I dare not use their unique experience on this earth and navigating in this society to reason whether or not, or explain away whether or not I am or am not something. You cannot apply someone else's experience to your own as an excuse for doing your own work. So let's not use the children as an excuse or a reason. And if you don't see my color, as Amber said, you don't just make me more invisible. It is a horrible thing to say I am colorblind unless you are talking about physical color blindness.
Color blindness.
We are first and foremost humans, and humans, our fight or flight, our engagement begins with what we see. What we see, how we smell, those senses kick in. So when you see me, I need you to see my color, because I need you to immediately recognize who Joy Nicole is. And if you say you don't see my color, what you do is you take this first layer of me away. So you're coming to engage with me without looking at the thing that I'm most presenting to the world. So I need you to see my color, because that is how I present to the world. That's the first layer of who I am. And how dare you try to get to my second layer without first dealing with the first? It's an invasion of my privacy in person, and it's an offense to say you don't see it when I can't take it off. So there's that.
And if your goal is to even support, how can you support me truly without knowing what affects me and what affects people who look like me and what, like, my experience? So don't take that away from me.
Rather than say, oh, I'm colorblind or I don't see color, you might want to say something. I hope I don't treat people differently based on the color of their skin. I aim to treat people with kindness without regard to their color. I hope to treat people fairly, unfairly. I hope to present justice. I hope to support. I hope to engage without, but the colorblind, really, it's just a lazy,
it is.
Honestly, it's a lazy and almost irresponsible way of trying to justify who we are. And it's easier, but doesn't take any ownership for what we believe and how we engage with other people.
Thank you all. Ready for the next statement?
We're ready.
This is in the form of a written message. Hey there, did you meet our new CFO, the black guy that looks like a black Ryan Reynolds?
I'm sorry. We're talking about common knowledge, and we all know who Ryan Reynolds is, then we know his identity, and it's not necessary to provide that adjective. It's not necessary for you to say a black Meryl Streep. It's not necessary for you to change what if the compliment that you're trying to give is that you have this talent, or I like this talent, or you look like so and so, or something, even though that is still not preferred, because you could, just let me be me. But if what you're trying to say is that, then the descriptor is not necessary for common and popular knowledge.
Yeah, no need to add an adjective to a proper noun. The same way I wouldn't say, oh, she sings so well, she's like a white Beyonce, right? I mean, that does it's unnecessary, and it's uncomfortable, especially if I'm black, because I'm trying to figure out, so did you think I don't know who Ryan Reynolds was, or like at what point are you qualifying Ryan Reynolds to me? Is it the part that he's black, the CFO, or that I'm not up with entertainment? I'm not really sure why you feel a need to do that, and now I'm forced to do the work of figuring that out.
The other part of that is also that typically it is, of course, a white person that you're saying that I'm, in relation to. Oh, she's like the black Barbara Walters. Well, one, I don't want to be Barbara Walters. Allow me, if you will, to, like, you're ascribing greatness once again to whiteness versus allowing me to be who I am and saying you are amazing for who you are. You are amazing because you remind me of this white person. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Or simply use a different example.
That's it.
I mean, that might take 4 more minutes. You may have to think about another person. And if you can't, that probably means you have a little more work to do learning about cultures other than your own. If you can only come up with an example that falls in line with your perceived identity, then you just haven't done any real work. So find someone else instead of the black Ryan Reynolds. And if you just don't know how to say Ryan Reynolds and you just struggle with that, use someone else, Denzel Washington. Or just say that's a handsome.
That's it. That's it. Say what you're trying to say. Oh my goodness, I like the way you did this XYZ, and it reminded me or something. But don't make me that person. Don't give me their identity, and again, turn me into someone else. Just say what it is that you appreciated.
That's right.
That's it. Without calling me articulate.
Now see, Amber, you're going there.
Next slide.
And what about this slide, since it's a written message, sticks out to you?
Well, the fact that they didn't capitalize black.
Ooh, capitalize my race.
So black with a small b is a color. That's a color.
This is black.
Yes. It's lovely, by the way.
Thank you.
But that isn't how you describe people. If you say I have on a black shirt, great. But when you refer to Joy Nicole, I am black. And since that isn't my color, and it's my identity, it's my race, it's how I see myself, absolutely capitalize the B.
And allow it the respect that it's due, but also think about it in the sense that we capitalize other ethnicities and races when we write them all the time. We don't write Asian, if you will, in lowercase. Like, this is how I identify. Allow me the same respect that we give to other ethnicities and races, please.
And then remember that we're talking about black in its fullness and wholeness, which is across the entire globe.
It is.
We're not just talking about blacks in America. We're talking about black, which means, everywhere from North, Central, South America. There are blacks all over the entire globe. And so when you're talking about that depth of people, the way we would do with any other grouping of persons, it deserves capitalization, even if your iPhone wants to default to the small b, because I understand that in this time we write quickly, we do things fast, and Black, you know, is not necessarily the term that we use. A lot of times we'll say African American, which will capitalize automatically. Black does not. Take the time, either teach your phone to do it or stop, erase the small
do it
b.
enough so that Siri does it.
That's right.
Do it enough that she will change it for you. She types things I am not trying to most of the time because I may. So if you do it enough, she will assist you.
Thank you. Ready for the next one?
Amber?
Yes.
Just want to tell her how sorry I am for all this.
Are you sorry that I'm Black or that you're white? That is always my response because I want us to flesh out this conversation. I love my identity. I love being Black. Like one of the participants said, I knew I was Black when I was born. I absolutely love my culture, my people, and like Dr. Joy Nicole said, from Jamaica to Haiti to South Africa to North Africa, across the globe, I love the diaspora. Telling me that you are sorry or expressing to me your guilt or your shame, one, is not helping me to dismantle anything. If your hands are full of your own shame and despair and guilt, they are not free to assist me in doing the work that is necessary to be done. And I also think that it makes you miss the part that there are lots of good things about being Black. It's not all this bad, this bad old crime or education or all of these things that we talk about that need to be fixed, because Black joy is a form of resistance, and we constantly relish in it. Dr. Joy?
So the apology, unless you've done something specific that I am going to be offended by, or you've done some offense and you're apologizing for that, just walking up to me and saying, I'm so sorry, I'm white and I feel so bad. Well, you've done two things. Now you've again placed the onus of this work on me, because now I have to respond to your guilt. I'm now trying to exhaust another part of myself to respond to your emotional need. So the apology, again, just like we would teach our children, if you're going to say, you're sorry for what exactly?
Right.
The specificity is key here. And the apology, again, is a simple way of trying to say, it's almost like a lazy or simple way of saying what you really mean. What you really mean to say is, I hate that this is happening. I'm discouraged, I'm disgusted, I'm frustrated. I need you to use some real vocabulary. I feel as though we haven't done enough, right? I want to be able to do more work. I don't know how to communicate how frustrated I am. I don't know how to help my children learn to be better at communicating with Blacks and persons of color. Say what you mean. Don't take the easy way and just come to me with an apology, because either I'm going to say, okay, and end the conversation because I don't know what we're talking about, or I'm forced to now work in my profession and try to pull some reality out of you. And that's your work that you should have done before you came to me. That's your work. You should have taken the time to figure out what's troubling you, what's bothering you, what's making you feel angry or frustrated. That is your homework. When you start to engage in conversation with me as a Black woman, if we're going to talk about race and race relations, that work should be done. So you're not apologetic. You've already versed, because you fleshed it out. So you can verse and you can enunciate and tell me exactly what it is we're going to discuss. Joy Nicole, I am really frustrated. I watch the news, I'm sickened by it, and I want to know, who do I write to? Who do I call? Where do I give money? See, those are things we can actually do. We can ally if you come to me with the truth. If you just come and dump and I'm sorry, either I have to do the work now, or I have to choose to walk away from the conversation because I'm already exhausted because I've been Black for 45 years.
When I get, it's also like, I see you. I've learned more. I see, I can acknowledge this experience. How can I affirm, you know, you in this place? How can I talk with you? Like, are we able to talk about these things? But it lets me know that you, at the very least, are past, I hate that I watched that video on the news, right? You have done the work and understand that it's not this one video. It's not this one situation. It's not this one movement. It's not just George Floyd. This is not why we are where we are right now. There's several centuries of why we are where we are. So I need you to come ready to discuss that, and not just the fact that there is currently protests, and not just the fact that there is current unrest and you had to watch a video that was traumatizing, because I stopped watching those traumatizing videos 4 years ago, okay? As a Black mother with 2 Black sons, I'm not able to watch those videos because I'm not going to do that to myself every single time. And it's way too constant. This week, last week, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. The next slide. Cute for a vacation or something like that, but I don't think those dreads are appropriate for work. But I really do wonder what they feel like.
Sure to go.
So let me just say, don't touch my hair. Don't ask to touch my hair. So I have 5 children. I said that earlier. The same way I didn't want people to say, "Oh, can I touch your belly?" No, you cannot. This is my person. Please don't reach out. It's such an invasion, and it's just wrong. And that has nothing to do with just race. It is completely out of order, inappropriate. It's wrong to ask someone to touch them, especially when you're touching them because out of your pure curiosity, as though I am a spectacle for you to come and investigate. It feels like you're treating me like a pet at a pet store. You know, I'm a person. I'm not here to entertain you, so please don't do that. And we could have a 50-minute webinar on what's appropriate for work and professionalism. But I will just leave it right here and say, for a very long time, people of color, you know, Indigenous, Black, people have tried to meet a standard of beauty and professionalism that is so unrealistic and unfair and oppressive. Stop that. And that's just the end of it. Stop. I should not have to adjust. Let's just be honest for a second. Not adjust. I don't want to have to appear more white for you to accept me for who I am. And because I don't want to, and I'm an entire person, all 360 degrees of myself, I refuse to force myself to have a different texture of hair, a different shade of skin, to try to adjust things that I was born with so that you feel more comfortable. No, it's appropriate for work because it's who I am. And as long as I'm doing the work and the job, as long as I'm skilled, I'm talented, I'm the expert, I have the qualifications, my hairstyle has nothing to do with you or how you should place, position, or perceive me in my workplace. Amber?
One, hair is not just hair often in the Black community. It means something. It's special. It is no different than any other tradition. We joke about going to get our hair done, but the specific styles, braids, dreads, if you don't know why they were worn, if you don't know why they're or the history behind them, then don't speak on it. Go do the research for that, like you do everything else, and understand why they're important to us. Understand why it's no different. The same way I wouldn't speak on a sari, the same way, you know, I wouldn't speak on a yarmulke. You don't speak on my dreads because it's not yours. This is my culture. And again, like you were saying, assimilation is racism. Okay, it is oppression. Anytime a group, any group, has to fit into in order to, if you will, just make it, just to make it, is a problem. It is oppressive. And at any time, I think I shared before about when I got faux locks. I got faux locks like a couple of years ago, and the night before I was going to go to work, I sat in my floor and cried because I was afraid to go to work with faux locks. Now, these are fake dreads. I wasn't ready for the commitment. Now, I absolutely loved the hairstyle. It made me feel very, very much in touch with my ancestors and my heritage. And it didn't stop the fear that I had walking into work the next day, because I knew that I was going to be the radical Black. I was going to be the, oh, here goes Sister Soldier. But the thing is, what if I am? How does my want to share my pride in my hair take anything from you? How does that make you small in any way? So just allow me to be. I need to be comfortable with my Black. You don't have to be.
I use this example a lot, and I'm sure we have some people on the call that can relate to this. How many times have you gone to work, you're in that part of pregnancy where you're starting to show, and you're afraid because now you have to deal with, will they think I'm not capable? Am I going to lose my job? Will they think I'm going to quit soon? Or wanted to do an interview and try to hide your pregnancy, right? That same fear, that shame over something that should be a source of pride. That's the feeling that happens when you say, oh, you know, she has that afro. Oh, she wears those braids with the beads. It's that same thing. It's so inappropriate. Like Amber said, it is deeply connected to identity and ancestry and culture. But more than that, again, you're asking me to take off a layer of myself and be responsible or fit into someplace I should not have to, any more than you should have to wear baggy clothes because you're pregnant.
My competency wasn't going to change with that hairstyle. My expertise wasn't going to change. The level of professionalism wasn't going to change. But the internalized racism is what that was.
And ultimately, we have, as a culture, we've internalized white supremacy. I mean, and I'm going to repeat that. Black women, especially, have internalized white supremacy. So for generations, we've done things to make ourselves more white, right? We have straightened hair, and I mean, spend hours trying to make our noses smaller and our cheeks higher and our eyes and our lips smaller. And, you want to put lip filler, I'm trying to line it out, all these things, because we've internalized white supremacy. And so if you really want to start dismantling, some of that work has to do with accepting and embracing our difference.
We internalized it, and we've done all these things all to have it a slap in the face by having those same features that we have naturally taken from us and given to someone else, and then they're considered beautiful. Like Bo Derek braids, I don't know what those are, okay? Or Kylie Jenner lips. You mean the full lips that have been on my face and everybody's face? Like all of the same features that have been natural and that we have been told to get rid of are now being sold by plastic surgeons, and then they're considered beautiful. Okay, Donald.
Thank you both. She is such an exceptional young Black lady. She's so well spoken. I'm impressed with how she pulled herself up by the bootstraps.
Okay, let me give you a story. So I teach and train all over the world. I have literally been on every continent more than one time. It's never been more difficult than in the United States. I was in Orlando at Disney World, giving a training to a room full of compliance specialists. Now, please hear me. Compliance specialists. These are professionals who deal in compliance. So after our hour together, this really lovely white woman who had some tears earlier in the session, and her face was a little, wet and her mascara had run a bit. She walked up to me and she said, "Dr. Martinez, I'm changed forever." And her next line was, "You are so articulate for a Black girl." I'm in a room in Orlando. You've paid thousands of dollars to be here. You had an emotional connection and reaction to the work we've just done. And the first thing you say to me is, "I'm articulate for a Black girl." Let's just, for a moment, hear that. You're so articulate. She didn't stop there. You're so articulate for a Black, and she didn't stop there. You're so articulate for a Black girl. Now, what am I supposed to say to that? Am I supposed to say, "Oh, thank you, wonderful, articulate white woman"? What am I supposed to say to that? Am I supposed to take that as a compliment? Am I supposed to not have a visceral reaction because I just, sat here for 55 minutes teaching you don't say that? No, now I have to continue the work and say, "I know you meant that as a compliment. But if I'm articulate, I'm articulate. What you showed is your racism, because Black women are not inarticulate. And moreover, I'm a full-grown woman. And in my culture, you don't call grown people boy or girl. Doesn't know. So I will start there and just say this. If I'm articulate, if I'm exceptional, if I'm extraordinary, if I'm smart, if I'm beautiful, I am those things. They don't need a qualifier or a contrast. I just am those things. If I'm well-spoken, I am well-spoken. We don't have to say, for a person of color, "Oh, she's really a great English speaker for someone from Asia." Right? We have to stop using these qualifiers. Just like on the other slide, we talked about adjectives. Just give the person the compliment. "You're exceptional. Thank you." That's the end of it. And if you're impressed with what I've done, I think that's great, but I will let Amber go with the bootstraps because I didn't have boots or straps. So, Amber?
I think even when it comes to the story you were telling, even if you just say you're so articulate, because we've been hit with it so many times, we know what the rest of that sentence is. We know, even if it's are so articulate, I know in my head, I just heard for a Black girl and it didn't even come out your mouth. So
what you really meant to say was, "You talk so wide."
Right. Which has been told to me several times. So I guess the problem is that we ascribe talking or speaking well, or even having a command of the King's English to white people. And the other part of that is I was the daughter of a principal. My family is full of educators. I was that weird kid that loved to read the dictionary for fun. And when I get angry, my words get bigger, according to those around me. Like, that's who I am. So I'm not articulate for a Black girl. I am articulate because I'm Amber. And I absolutely love being the daughter of my father and mother. The other part is how she pulled herself up by her bootstraps. One, you're making the assumption that you know the history, of this person, that all Black people come from this very, low income type of background. I come from a 2-parent home. Both my parents have always driven in luxury vehicles. They've always been middle class, if that is still a thing nowadays, all of that. So if there were camps, if there were all of these, like, I went to them. So my experience, if you will, is not this idea that you have of whatever you think I have overcome. What I've overcome, it doesn't change the fact that I've still experienced racism, barriers, and discrimination and things of that nature. But don't assume to know anything about my boots, the straps that came with them, because for all you know, those boots could have been Gucci, and you've put me in a box that I didn't belong. All right. And I've never been hit with this one more than after doing the same TEDx that Donald mentioned. When I got off the stage, I didn't even have time I talked about being colorblind, why we should not be colorblind, my experience as a Black woman, how I have been othered a million times, the fear that it causes for me, my sons, my husband, and everyone who looks like me, and anyone who doesn't fit in. And then I got off the stage, and all I was hit with was just all of these backhanded compliments and things that they thought, I'm sure, were supposed to be compliments. There was a white male who came up to me and told me how much this speech had impacted him and how he's going to see color, and that it reminded him of this story or this book he had recently read. We were halfway through this story before I realized the author was Black, okay? Because I think he just thought I should know this name. Side note, all Black people don't know each other. All Black people don't know the same, like all Black authors. Like, we learn things too. So we're halfway through this story about this book, and he says and he said that no matter how well he does, that he still gets hit with N-word moments. But he said it. He actually said the word, nigger moments. And I thought to myself, and you have no idea that you just handed me one. I did this. This was my task. This was something that I accomplished. And when I stepped off stage, you needed to come remind me that was so good for a Black person. And you didn't say those words, but you specifically made your compliment tailored to my identity and how well I did, and how you read about some other Black person and what that Black person said. And in his book, he said this, and you just wanted to let me know that I was seen. Yes, I am seen. I see that you see I'm a Black person. So,
in truth, in any relationship, you don't give a compliment with comparisons and contrasts. It's not a compliment.
right.
A compliment is, Donald, your blue shirt is wonderful. A compliment is not, Donald, your blue shirt is nice. I don't typically like blue. I typically like navy.
Right.
It just, in any relationship, the minute you add some comparison or contrast, you've eliminated the compliment. In any relationship, no matter what you're talking about or in any context, if you give a compliment, just give the compliment. And if you have nothing nice to say, please do like our grandmothers have taught us and be quiet.
Or like they said before you go in a store, come in, sit down, and don't touch nothing.
Thank you.
Oh.
Okay. I had no idea about racism being this bad. Maybe now we should begin and end our staff meetings checking in with our colleagues. Ask how they are doing in their own skin.
The race sandwich. This is one of my top 10 pet peeves. Okay, I am at work, whatever that is, and every time now we have a meeting on Teams or Zooms, you want to start the meeting with, Dr. Joy Nicole, with all that's going on, I just want to, how are you doing?
Are you okay?
And then before we hang up the call, you want to say, so, what can we do? Are you sure there's nothing we can do? The race sandwich, where every conversation, because you want to feel better, because you would like me to hear your words and take that in and internalize it as, oh, you're caring, you put me in a situation where now in my profession, I'm no longer just the doctor, I'm the Black doctor. And not just the Black doctor, I'm the Black doctor that has to speak for the Black community. And so you strip away my expertise, the hundreds of thousands of dollars of school debt I have, right? To get you just strip it all away and say, oh, but we should check in because, Black people are going through so much. Well, I didn't become Black the day you decided I was going through a lot. And so if we weren't talking about my Blackness before January, please let's not. You asked me, is everyone in your family safe from COVID? I mean, there's a lot of other things, if you really want to know how I'm doing, we can check in on, right? That have nothing to do with my race. And it becomes, platitudes that way become irritants. And not just irritants, they go from irritating to offensive, because it's not, typically becomes less genuine every time you ask me. So now I have to stop thinking about the preparation I've done for this meeting, right? I have to take myself out of my profession and my expertise, which is what I'm here for. And now I have to talk to you about something, truthfully, I can't give you in this next 40 seconds. So how am I doing? If I was honest, it would take too long. So I'm going to give you a moot and rote answer like, oh, we're good. We're fine. I appreciate you asking. When in truth, I want to go, why? Why are you asking me that? Again, the same way you're colorblind, ask the question, what do you really want to know? If you really want to know, Dr. Joy, are you in your angry mode today? Say that. Are you okay to have this meeting? Something that I wish more people would do, and I teach in my classes, is in the beginning of a meeting, it is okay to say, do we need to have this meeting? Is everyone okay with being here? Especially now that we're working remotely. It's okay to have enough candor and trust to say, is everyone good here today? Should we reschedule? Does anyone need to step out? But don't say, how are you doing? It's not a real question. Real leaders, real moderators, real facilitators of conversation will ask the question, are your children well? Do you need to step away? Don't you have soccer today? Because, we have some kind of relationship. But just asking me, how you doing? No, I need you to dig deeper and do better. And I also need you to not put me in a situation where, again, I'm forced to do the work. Amber.
I had no idea about racism being this bad. I would rather you tell me the truth, because the news is the news. So you've seen the Trayvons, you've seen the Tamirs, you've seen all of the other things in the news for years. Rodney King ain't new. We know we assassinated King. Like, we knew these things. We know why we assassinated King. So we know, okay, this is the thing. So come to me and say, you know what, honestly, it wasn't affecting my life before. During COVID, I've had a time to kind of just pause. I really didn't know, honestly, or I knew, but it wasn't my fight. Now I feel like it's also my fight. Now I have a different, take on this situation or something, but I don't know. It runs up and through me, not only because it's what I do as a professional, right? Because I go around, we talk about bias, race, and all of these things, but because as a Black woman and as a person of color, I have been screaming for my entire life. For 35 years, I have been yelling, make space for us. Do this. This is what is wrong. And not just me, but the women and men before me, the same people, whether it was Ella Fitzgerald or you know what I mean, Ida B. Wells or Frederick Douglass or Sojourner Truth, we've been yelling the same things for centuries. So you didn't know is not true, because at the very least in February, you learned about 3 of them during your Black History class, month. So that's not true. You knew. Just say that you didn't care. And I can take that truth, that harsh truth, more than I can this false lie of I didn't know. And as far as
you start a conversation with a lie, you've ended the conversation.
that's it.
So that deception, you've ended if you come to me with I didn't know, there's a blocker immediately placed in our conversation. Immediately.
Because now I have to assume that you didn't have phones, TV, news, that you haven't like you've only interacted with other white people your entire life. You've never seen another person of color. And if you did, you didn't understand why they were off to the side and the white people over here. The point is you knew. That's all. So say that I am now acknowledging your experience. I am now able to see this in a different way or something, but not that you didn't know. And with the, like Dr. Jordan Nicole said, the how are you doing in your own skin, the are you okay? That are you okay? I've been Black 35 years. I've been Black a long time. I'm fine with this skin. Oppression is nothing new. Racism is nothing new. Global pandemics, a little new, okay? But health disparities and things or diseases killing Black and brown populations, not new again. So COVID and you acknowledging where, the need is during COVID, okay, but we're used to this. Or as they say, when white America gets a cold, Black America gets pneumonia. Like, listen, this is life for us. So we've always, battened down the hatches and we have always made it through. So asking me how I am is empty when essentially you could ask me, how can I support you? If you're asking me that, supporting me in this time in a professional setting may look like you understand when I don't get right back to your email because I'm grieving. I don't have to know every person individually. I don't have to know Ahmaud Arbery or Breonna Taylor. What I know is that Sandra Bland could have been me. So every single headline, just assume that even if I didn't watch the video, I'm grieving. I'm grieving the same way I say I identify as Black, and that means I'm talking about Haiti. That means I'm talking about Ghana. That means I'm talking about those in Britain, the diaspora. It's the same way I'm saying that family is also the family you saw on the news, and I'm grieving every single time. So when you say, well, I emailed you twice, I want to say, and I've had 10 family members die. And when you say, this was this deadline, I hear you, but the other part of me wants to say, if I don't get to lump you with the whole, right? If I don't treat you like the white police officer that killed XYZ, then don't lump me in the whole, right? Come and ask me what I need. Come and ask me how to support me. And that is not a monolith for all Black people. What I need for support may be an extension on a deadline. What Dr. Joy Nicole needs may be something completely different. So if you're saying you want to help Black people, first of all, stop making us a monolith. And second of all, find the work and do it individually with the people with whom you're trying to impact. Don't assume that one solution goes for the whole. All Black people can be on Wednesdays.
Look, be honest. Don't start with deception. Please don't give me a race sandwich. Don't use my professional space where I'm speaking as an expert to ask me about my race and ethnic experience. And if you are concerned and you are genuinely trying to make space, then ensure we have a relationship built on trust and candor that you can say to me, how can I assist? What do you really need right now? And make space for my answer. And if it makes you uncomfortable, be uncomfortable.
Sit with it. Sit with it. I can guarantee you we're willing to share some of the uncomfort. I have experienced lots of uncomfort. I'm sure, people of color and Black people have experienced lots of uncomfort. We're willing to share it. You can have a little bit of it for a little while.
How we doing, Donald?
Yeah. Check in.
Yeah. Let's check in. Well, first of all, thank you all, but that's neither here nor there right now. I know. I just appreciate this, but let's check in with everybody in the group. We'll do another participant poll. So as a Black, Indigenous, or other person of color, have you experienced a comment or a conversation similar to at least one of the previous slides?
All the time. I was like, today.
Right before I got on this webinar.
Right. I got an email just right when we've been on this webinar. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
Take about 10 more seconds.
Wow.
Amber and Dr. Joy Nicole, do you want to comment?
I wish I could say I'm surprised. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could actually say I'm heartbroken that no one said never. But the truth is, I didn't expect a never. So I'm more surprised that 8% said rarely
Mm-hmm.
than I am surprised that no one could say never. And that's the point, right? The point is, even people in their best intention aren't on their best behavior.
I think that for me, when I saw the slide, it felt one connecting, like we say, like, oh, I've experienced those hurts. And the other part is, dang, why we got to keep experiencing those hurts, because I know that, I know what that feels like, I guess is what. So I wish that there were one never, even if there were one never, that to me would be, something I could smile about.
Wow.
Well, 8% said rarely. So again, and I say this often, I am not a person who's not proud of progress. Okay. I am proud of progress. I am excited. I mean, just this conversation, the space and room for this conversation is extraordinary progress, right? So if I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be happy that there was a time this conversation would have been just no, it wouldn't even have been a thought, coming together and again, Donald being a white male facilitating this conversation with us, it would have been so uncomfortable for him or someone who looked like him. The people around him that protected him structurally would not have allowed the conversation, even if he wanted to.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of progress.
What about this poll question? As a white person, have you experienced comment or conversation similar to at least one of the previous slides?
Donald, you're so empathic for a white man.
Very lucky and privileged. Let's take about 10 more seconds.
Gosh.
What do these results say to you all? Dr. Joy Nicole and Amber?
Well, never. Rare. It's funny how the never and all the time are flipped.
Mm.
How they're opposing. It's just experiences vary for every individual person. We honor that, but we also have to acknowledge the fact that for the most part, we speak in terms of whiteness. That's, we compare and contrast in terms of whiteness. And it just shows that we have more work to do.
So to the community out there, we have a few more prompts. We're not going to get through all of them, but there are a couple more that we're going to get to, and then we're going to open it up for questions and for Dr. Joy Nicole and for Amber to respond to some of the questions that have been in the question box. But before they do that, like I said, we're going to do a couple more prompts. Of course, I don't want Black people to suffer, but all lives matter.
Until you mean all lives, until that is a true statement and you can show, because see, I can show where Black lives don't matter. Like, I can give you the data that will prove that that statement is incorrect. So until you can show me that this is truth, then stop saying it. Okay, because we can talk about education and we can talk about the disparities and how resources are divided upon racial lines in almost every city in this country. You know, okay, we can talk about health disparities and how when I, like as a Black woman, how I'm more likely to die from maternal related, complications than my white counterparts. We can talk about police stops and arrests and even the shooting of. If the rhetoric of more white people get killed by the police than Black people. Newsflash, there are more white people. So just numbers alone, that makes sense, doesn't it? But the likelihood is what we're talking about. The likelihood of me dying from an interaction with the police is vastly different. So until you are ready to reckon with the fact that when you say all, you're taking away from the fact that we give what is needed to whom it is needed. And we're not talking about all lives right now. We understood it was necessary to pay out reparations when we were talking about the Holocaust. That was understood. Oh, let us make sure we cover this. What I'm saying is that we're not going to talk about giving what is needed to whom it is needed, because that's what we do the same way. All my kids, right? I love all my kids. I don't want either one of them to suffer. But if one of them is hungry and one of them isn't, I can't say, wait, I got to wait till all of them hungry. I got to wait till everybody's hungry before I can. That's silly, okay? So we understand how to parse things out and give what is needed when it's necessary until it comes to Black lives, bodies, and issues. So that just stop it. That's a stop. That's not even don't. That's a stop. Stop saying it. And you know what else? There's no such thing as a blue life. Side note, blue lives matter. You can take off a uniform. You can take off a profession. I'm Black every day. I'm Black every single day, regardless of what job I choose. So stop that. Dr. Jordan Cole.
I said earlier that you can't give a compliment and then follow it up with a comparison or contrast. That's what this is. You're saying, of course, I don't want Black people to suffer, but then you qualify it, which means for me, you don't really care that Black lives suffer. If we're having a conversation about apples, don't come back and start talking about hats, because now I'm confused. Were we talking about apples? Because I was telling you that I was really concerned that my apple tree was suffering from some kind of disease, and now you want to tell me that your hat had mold. I'm lost in the conversation. We are in a moment, season where we're talking about the lives of Black people. If we are engaging in conversation about race and racism and its effects, whether we're talking about structural racism, if we're talking about social justice, racial equity, we're talking about hunger, food insecurity, housing, if we are talking about Black, it is an inappropriate, out of context response to just jump in with something that doesn't surround itself against the Black experience. That makes no sense. If I'm talking about wine, I'm going to talk about wine, not liquor, right? Because those are not the same thing. They don't have the same experience to be made. To come back from all, Black lives matter. Well, all lives matter.
If you don't show up at the Race for the Cure going, what about liver cancer? Stop it.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about Black lives. And if we're, again, I keep saying it, if you're going to have a conversation about racism and white supremacy, and especially if you're talking about Black and white issues, keep the conversation honest. And an honest conversation has to stay in context. And if you're going to speak in context, it is inappropriate to bring in all lives. They are not a part of this conversation. They're not. If we're going to have a complex conversation, we still have to have it on a contextual topic. In context, this says Black people are suffering. We've done a poor job of elevating Black voices, of protecting Black bodies, of honoring Black contributions. That is what we are talking about. We are not minimizing in this conversation anyone else's contribution. That's not a part of this conversation. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about in context. What we are absolutely going to discuss needs to be set out front and center in the conversation. Anytime you're having a complex conversation, that is how you begin and end. You begin and end by setting the stage, the rules, so to speak. If you're married or you have a partner, you understand if you're about to have a fight, hopefully you have some rules for how you go in. If we're going to talk about racism, there are some rules. One of those rules is if we're talking about Black, let's stay on Black. Don't come back with, well, you know, Latinx people too. I see now that's a different experience. If we're talking about Black, don't come in with, well, people of all colors. No, see, that's a different experience. I need you to stay focused on the topic because that's how we stay honest. That's how we can engage in a way where I can actively listen and I'm not setting myself up for failure in the conversation and you aren't either, because now I feel like I have to go on the defense. So I can no longer hear you because you're talking outside of context and I'm just thinking about my next reply and not really hearing your words.
And I have
if you come at me with, well, all lives, now I'm in a defense mode and I'm thinking about my next offensive play and I really can't hear you because now you've brought something out of context into our content and I'm confused. I'm confused. I'm offended. I'm distracted. And I'm more focused on my next statement than I am in really hearing you actively. And so what that does is it ends effectively our conversation.
I think you also have to remember that one, we're talking about all discrimination, all hate, all prejudice is wrong. It is also not distributed equally. So to bring in other races when we're talking about Black is again suppressing and diluting the experience of the people that we are saying need to be heard. Okay, well, it's not to say that all people of color don't experience some form of oppression, because since we live in a society that perpetuates white supremacy, this is true. It is also fair to say that the Asian experience is not the same as the Black experience, that the South Asian experience is not the same as, you know, the Eastern Asian experience. So we can understand that things can be different in context. So let's do that. Let's acknowledge that one, having a similar, if you will, identity does not make it the same. Being a minority does not make you a Black person. Being a woman does not mean you understand my experience as a Black woman, because the two are never separate for me. So I think it's, in school, the teacher, when you would take a test, would tell you to skip the hard questions so that, you know, you have more time to focus on it at the end. And I think that America is still operating under that same advice. Let's talk about LGBT, or let's talk about the Latinx population. Let's talk about, because if we're going to have an honest and transparent conversation, and we saying things such as Black Lives Matter. First of all, let's acknowledge the amazing Black women that started the organization, but remember that the sentence has nothing to do with the organization. It has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with parties. It is saying Black Lives Matter. And if you tell me that, you know, that's an issue, then I tell you, one, matter is this much. Matter is
the minimum. It's the minimum.
Matter is the minimum being asked. The definition of matter says a subject for consideration. There is a population of people asking for their lives to be a subject of consideration, and it's being met with opposition. So that's the minimum. So when we're talking about not wanting to give, say Black Lives Matter, or that's being exclusionary, or these type of things, one, I would have to say when, because Black Lives Matter, one, is not a new statement. It's not a new sentiment. It's the same one. Black Lives Matter is the same thing my ancestors were yelling as they were being thrown from slave ships. It is the exact same sentiment being expressed in the Constitution when it says 3/5 a person, right? That they don't matter. It was the same expression or sentiment that W.E.B. Du Bois or Frederick Douglass was saying when he tried to explain that Black Lives Matter. It's the same pain that fueled the Harlem Renaissance. Black Lives Matter, right? Matter is the minimum. Understand that when we are talking about people that have been here for centuries and are still experiencing things on a level that is not equal to any other minority, it is rude, it is disrespectful, and it dilutes that experience.
And let's just say, when I say matter is the minimum, here, like Amber said, you're talking about generations of people asking, please hear what this statement says. It says, would you for a moment consider my life significant? I when you come back and say, well, all lives matter, I am asking you, if my daughter walked up to me and said, Mommy, can I have a moment of your time? I don't say, I got 5 kids. I say, oh my goodness, yes, honey, what is it? Right? I give my attention. And everything else is outside of that context. And for that moment, I am right here. I bend down, I lean in, and I try to aim my gaze and all my energy so she knows she has my attention. That's what it's asking. When a person says Black Lives Matter, they are asking you to take a moment out of your lifetime to acknowledge their humanity, their contribution, their need for opportunity, their requirement for visibility, and to respond to that with a slight, like, well, everyone needs that. Ouch, right? And then you go, so my way's better. Well, actually, it's the same. It's the same racism we've always been met with. I won't get ahead on the slides, but please hear what it's asking. It is just a statement that says, for a moment, would you consider the fact that we have as much right to exist, as much right to show ourselves, to be ourselves, to express ourselves? Can you for a moment honor that? I don't know that you would intentionally stand in my face and say no.
Right. For a moment, can we not be 3/5 a person?
Donald, you have the intense brow there.
Okay.
Thank you all. As you know, we have some other prompts, but full disclosure to the entire group, I was texting Amber and asking if we should stop there and move on to the end. And sorry, Dr. Joy Nicole, I don't have your mobile. I've probably been texting you too, because I wanted to get a feel from you how you all are doing, and also want to respect the time that we have. Obviously, there are a multitude of other examples, experiences, conversations that white people have that we could share and that we've experienced, but I'd like to open it up now to the entire group and ask folks in the in the audience, if there are questions that you want to share in the question section that you would like Dr. Joy Nicole or Amber to respond to, or if you would like to just share part of your story, and perhaps one of us, if you were comfortable, could read it and share with the entire group. So at this point now, again, in the question section, if you'd like to ask a question, we will do our best to field as many as possible and respond to, or if you'd like, we could hopefully share part of your story.
I'm happy that the race for the cure analogy, is helpful as far as being able to provide, context. I think if nothing else, we've tried to get across that it's important to, one, question what you think you know, push back, and then also do the research, not just in, the historical aspect, but even so it allows you to frame the conversations that you're going to have in the present, so that you come in with the necessary reverence for the experience that has been had by those populations of people. So, yes. And understand that the narratives that are used to perpetuate these things are just as harmful.
Whew. There's so many questions I want to, so many I want to respond to. So several of you have mentioned when we talked about bootstrapping, the myth of bootstraps, and yes, Amber, your statement, those boots could have been Gucci, absolutely. And if they were mine, they probably were. Natalie Smythe, I hope I said that well. She said, articulation has been synonymous with education or intelligence. I've read and heard very well articulated BS. Yes, that's so true. I will say, we talked about this yesterday. There is a study done where they showed images of Black men on a screen to white males and females, and they gave them on the screen a short bio, their level of education and a few achievements. And when they asked them to describe those Black males to them, what was odd was that all of the white people, when they recalled the person they thought was intelligent, they described them with lighter skin. They described their features as more European. So it is true, we tend to achieve, or no, I'll say it nicely. We just think the whiter you are, the better you are. It's been ingrained in us. So one of the questions talked about internalizing. Yes, we've internalized that. And it has taken time for all of us, I think, to get to the place where we can step up and present ourselves and be real. Amber and I, we talk about being all 360 degrees of yourself. My skin is included in that. And if you really want to be present and you really want to be effective in communicating, and especially when it talks about race and socioeconomic determinants of health, I think it is important and imperative that we can ascribe characteristics to individuals and not groups. And what I mean by that is, don't see me as the Black doctor. See me as the individual I am. Read my bio, understand who I am, my contribution, my aims, my goals. And if you can do that for yourself, if you can step out of the boxes that the world has put you in, which for me, I call moral treason. Moral treason happens when you ascribe to yourself characteristics and values that are not your own. So I set myself up for failure because I'm using standards that Donald's family has set up for him, and I ascribed them to myself, and now I try to go out and achieve something that was not mine to achieve. Those types of errors are what make it harder for us to stand up and own who we are and be ourselves, and to really speak from a place of honesty and transparency and vulnerability. And I think if we can get past that, set your own values, set your own standard, do it yourself, right? And then you don't have to worry about whether or not that grouping is judging you, because it's me. I have to be able to get up and go to bed with me.
And two things. I also wanted to address, I think this is it Angina or Gina Victor? Says, as a Black woman and wore locks for years, how do you deal with the rage that brews inside when white people try to provoke you to be the angry Black woman by saying these things? And it's wild. First, I feel like for years I let the fear of being an angry Black woman take away my justified passion or my outrage. And it was a societal straitjacket, and I allowed myself to continue putting it on. So one, there are days where I'm an angry Black woman, and I own that. So you can't call me something that I'm fine with accepting. There are days where I have the right to be angry about this experience and things that happen, and even expressing that. So I think that's one. And then two, as we said before, internalized racism is not just something that Black people experience, not something Indigenous people experience, but something that all people of color experience. There's a reason that whitening cream is one of the, best-selling beauty products in South Asia, as well as in parts of Northern Africa and Western Africa, because we have ascribed. It's true. We have ascribed beauty to whiteness and things like that. And even when we're talking about structural racism for other people of color, again, anyone who does not fit in, anyone who is not a part of the white norm will experience discrimination, prejudice, and those same barriers. So again, it is more so to say that it's not that they're not experienced by other people of color. We were also just wanting to make sure that people understand they're not experienced equally, but that all people, when we're dismantling this systemic racism, when we're dismantling white supremacy, that it's going to benefit every last person of color on the globe when we do it correctly.
If we do it correctly.
If we do it correctly, yes. Which would start with asking the people that experience it.
Donald, are you jumping in? You have
No, I'd love for you all to respond to some of these questions.
Someone asked for the name of the study. I can email the study. I have to look. I can't see on my screen right now, but I can email it later. The name of the study that I referenced. Can I email it to you later, Donald?
Absolutely, yes, I can definitely get that up.
And I'll take a screenshot, or I'll somehow figure out how to get back to this person.
Perfect.
Yeah,
there's so many good questions. I was just wondering if there's
they really are.
I know, right?
A couple more that you all wanted to address before we moved on to.
So Melissa said that she had texted a friend and asked her if she was okay after imagining her ancestral pain. Let me just say this: no, you were not being insensitive. I think it is so. I am grateful for the friends who say to me, "Oh my God, I saw that happen. I'm so disgusted. I can't even imagine what you're going through, but what can I do?" The point is be truthful. I don't understand. If you just have said, I'm imagining the ancestral pain you're going through, and I just want to make sure you're okay. See, that to me is a genuine connection that says, I don't have the answer, but are you good? What can I do? This is what we're saying. Be honest. The honest part says, I am imagining you're experiencing some pain today. Ancestral pain is real. Soul ties are real. Black, white, person of color, indigenous, humans connect, and we connect over time. And so that's why these conversations are so imperative right now, because the rage that you see coming out, the very visceral reactions that you see are not just based in my experience today or for the last 45 years. It's a culmination of stories, experiences, pain that has been passed down. My 92-year-old grandfather lives with me. And when I hear him talk about being a Black man, his experience is so different than mine, but so similar. 92. And when he talks about his 45th year, I feel pain. I feel pain because I can relate, and I don't want to be able to relate. So no, it was not insensitive. I'm glad you did it.
I would say I think that has been that has shown me a lot during this time, honestly. I have a friend who, after the George Floyd death, she sent me flowers, and I was tickled at first, honestly, because I had never received flowers for being Black. But I do know that what she was trying to say to me was, I have no idea what to say, but I need you to know you're on my mind and you're on my heart. Those flowers meant the world to me. They meant the world because I knew she was searching for something and trying to understand something that was difficult for her and connect in a way that she hadn't before. So that was special. The text messages that I get that from my white colleagues and friends just say, hey, I just wanted to let you know you were on my mind. And it may typically be after we see a news killing or something like that, right, of an unarmed Black man. But I know why they're reaching out, and that means something to me. So I say continue to connect and just make sure that you're being honest and culturally humble in those spaces.
So Kelly Giroux, I said this before, I'll say it again. You are right. There are intricacies in doing any kind of conversation, one that's intimate, complex, one that demands our full attention. There's always the chance you might do it wrong, right? But that's the joy of life. The joy of life says there's a chance, I could fail, but I'm going to keep going. There's a chance I could get this wrong, but I'm going to keep trying. I think we become better communicators. We become better friends, better parents, better people, better humans, right? The more we jump in and risk it. Risking, and I think, now I can only speak for Joy Nicole, but risking the conversation with me means more than your silence. Risk it. I'm a person that I can easily, discern genuine. Look, I'm going to probably get this all wrong. Sometimes I'll say a name and I'll say, I am probably going to mispronounce this, but I'm going to try it anyway, right? It's the risk. The risk says, yeah, I might not get this quite right, but I have an earnest desire to engage in this conversation. I have an earnest desire to ally. I have an earnest desire to co-conspire. I have an earnest desire. As long as it's earnest, it's genuine, people will feel that. People will know that. They'll recognize it. And it's easy to come back and say, oh, thank you. And I know, now I would have done this a little differently. And a lot of times my friends would just say, did I do that right? No, girl, not at all. And we laugh and they'll say, what should I have done? And that's okay. That's why we talk, because that's how we learn. One of my dearest friends is, she lives in Sydney, Australia, and she's wonderful. And every now and again, I'll try to say something. They use more abbreviations. I can't follow, and I'll say something, and we crack up at how ridiculous I sound. But it's my way of trying to tell her, I really want to know more about you, right? I really want to know more about your life. I want to jump in and engage. And so we have that trust. So the more you jump in, the more you risk it, not only will you become a better communicator overall, just overall, you'll knock down some barriers and knock down some walls, but you may find that you're a lot better at it than you think. So That's my answer to that.
I often say what comes from the heart reaches the heart. Black people, people of color, we know, like Dr. Joy Nicole said, when you're talking to me because I'm Black, I know that. And so because I know that, I know when you're being genuine. So when you're being genuine, I'm fine. I'm fine with you talking to me because I'm Black and you are looking for, you know what I mean? Like you're being genuine about that. That's not a new experience. The other part of that is, like I said, we're not going to get it all right. But I'm like, when you need to say something, right, and you're anxious and scared about saying something, then the minute you throw it out, you're like, I'm just going to say it, right? And you feel better and you have that, whew. Even if it didn't go right, you feel like you're not bottling that up anymore. I think that is an important feeling that we have to get to. When we are talking about experiencing things and failing, one, McDonald's and all other fast food places mess up our order all the time. We still go back. Okay, so think of this, we still go back. Think of this as like a cultural McDonald's. You're going in and testing some stuff. It's not going to all go right. Someone is going to mess up this order between the two of you. Now, whether you drive back through the drive-through and cuss somebody out, that speaks more to you, right? But we can keep trying and not give up, because not trying is why we were talking about this 400 years ago and why we're talking about it today. If we continue to not have the conversation, this exact same conversation will be had by our children and by their children, because no one wants to be uncomfortable. Because somewhere along the way, we were told, oh, life's not fair. And everybody's okay with saying that. But somehow being uncomfortable is a different situation. But it's okay to be uncomfortable. That's where the growth happens, right? I don't go to the gym until my pants don't fit. So just assume America's pants don't fit right now. It is time for growth. As King says, Black people have cashed in a check that has come back void. It is time to talk about that bankruptcy. It is time to uncover what that looks like and make it right for all people. Yes, when we dismantle white supremacy.
Well, thank you both, Dr. Joy Nicole and Amber. I feel like, to be honest with you, I feel like a jerk for cutting off this conversation, and I feel like a jerk and a lousy facilitator for not being able to respond to all the amazing questions and comments that are coming in. I am deeply sorry that we're not able to do that. I hope you all know that this is going to be continued at some level. This conversation, this narrative, and also this opportunity, especially for white people to continue to engage yourself at a level you've never engaged yourself before in this conversation, in this narrative, with our next webinar. We have 2 more after that, so there's 3 more webinars. Please know that this wasn't designed for you all to come out with any top 10 tools or these are the strategies that absolutely always work. We are going to provide you some best practices and the follow-up resources. But what we wanted to do today, thankfully, because of the awesomeness that is Dr. Joy Nicole and Amber, that we were able to have at least this hour and a half or so of experiencing what they experience as Black people, as Black women. We recognize and realize all the voices out there that we weren't able to lift up in this space, but we also just have to, I think, realize how grateful or how lucky, blessed, privileged, whatever word you want to use, were to have that look into their lives, for them sharing that, and that kind of feeding how we prepare for having these conversations with white colleagues. So I just want to end with letting you all know to check out racialequityhunger.org. There's a survey that went out last week. Please complete that as an organization. So check with other folks in your organization that also may be getting that email to make sure you coordinate and you reply to that survey as an organization, and we appreciate it. With that said, the final slide, our contact information for Amber and myself. I'm sure if you would like to have Dr. Joy Nicole's information, the slide deck that will go out, her website is on one of the first slides. You'll be able to find a way to contact her there. You can contact Amber or myself, and we can put you in contact with her also. So We thank everyone for their time, and we are right at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Please, everyone, take a deep breath, take care of yourself, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Bye. Did you stop recording?
About to.
I love you so much.
Okay, where's the stuff?
I wish I could like print the question.
I know.